Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fireside Chat on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network by Run, Try, Bike. I'm super excited about my guest today because I'm going to be talking to Cooper Boydston, who is the Chief Science Officer for Aletheia Run. What is Aletheia Run? Well, you're going to find out, but it is a wearable that will help you, the everyday athlete, become a better runner through improved performance as well as injury prevention. I've been chatting with their marketing team for a few months now. The founder, Sean Roach, has provided 3 articles that are on runtrymag.com that you should take a look at to get an understanding of how Aletheia Run came about and why Sean developed this product, not just for himself, but also for you. Before I bring Cooper on, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're using Spotify, you can leave us a comment, and I'll be sure to reply back to you. So before I continue rambling on and we end up with 35 minutes of me stumbling over my own words, let's get Cooper onto the show. Hi, Cooper. How are you?
Hi, Jason. I'm doing good.
Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. I know that our audience is going to be really dialed in on this conversation because one of the things that I believe and I talk about all the time is the ability to be able to run comes down to availability. And that means don't get injured. Because if you're unavailable and you're laying around the couch, then you're probably not running. But before we get started, I have an icebreaker for you. I don't know what part of the country you're in. I have no idea where you were born, where you live, or anything like that. But this is an important topic that we have to discuss, which is pineapple on pizza. Yay or nay?
I like it. Yep. I'm a fan.
Oh, no. Armando, what'd you do to me?
I eat any kind of pizza.
I love pizza myself. I'm a New York City kid, born and raised, so the idea of putting pineapple on pizza is extremely foreign to me. But what I always say to those who love it, that just means more for you and more for the other kind for me. That's it.
Right.
So I mentioned that Sean started Aletheia Run, and we've got a number of his articles on our website. But I'd love for you to give us sort of the Cliff Notes version of Aletheia Run, why the product came about and what runners can expect from it.
Yeah. So we've been working on this for quite a few years at this point, really. We've finally gotten it to a point where it's a real product that anybody can use. But it really started with Sean and myself and Richard Taylor. So Sean was the founder of first Tensegrity Physical Therapy and now Emergence Physical Therapy. And yeah, we're over here in Central Oregon right now. We started in Eugene, Oregon. And Richard was my advisor in physics when I was in school and college. And Richard's now the head of the physics department at the University of Oregon. And what we found in the clinic, especially in Eugene, there's a lot of runners. It's Tracktown, USA. It's kind of a big mecca for runners. All day long, every single day, we were working with injured runners. And when you actually look at the stats, it's something like 75 to 80% of runners get injured every year. And so, people are running for fitness to try to be healthy, and then they're getting themselves injured, and then they can't run, and now they're not healthy. So it's kind of counterintuitive, or not what you're trying to accomplish. So the thing is that there's a lot of research out there, like why do these running related injuries happen? What do you do about them? And so we know a lot. We know what to do. That's why people come and see us, right? We know, and we can analyze. We've got all this equipment in here. At this point, we have 3D motion capture. We have a pressure sensing treadmill. We have EMGs that can measure what muscles you're using. We have high speed video. We have all these tools that we can use to assess runners, and also ways to assess their strength and their mobility, things like this. And so we can identify these movement dysfunctions that are likely to lead to injury, and we can prescribe exercises or physical therapy that might address that can help reduce the risk of injury. But the trouble with that is that people need to come into the clinic, they need to see us, and also even with all of our fancy tech, usually you're only there for a short period of time. Like nobody gets injured in the clinic. You get injured when you're out there on the trail. You know, it's mile 21 and you should have stopped 10 miles ago, but you're you're still going.
Right.
And so what we actually initially set out to do is identify fatigue. So can we identify when your form breaks down and you're starting fatigue? But in the process of doing that, we realized that everybody fatigues in a unique way. So depending on what your personal strengths and weaknesses are, your fitness level, your endurance level, even your history leading up, you know, what you did yesterday or the day before, those all are factors that contribute. And so we sort of shifted. We realized that we could identify these movement dysfunctions that are likely to lead to injury, and that does, I think, become more prevalent as you fatigue. But sometimes it's present right away. Like sometimes you just have maybe a muscle weakness or an imbalance, mobility issue, something like that. So that's really where we got started. We wanted to come up with a way that we could take this big lab that we have this, it's expensive. It takes specialists to run it. You've got to come to us. How can we take that out onto the trail, and how can we start to identify these movement dysfunctions or these things that may lead to injury before the injury actually happens, and then give people some feedback about what you can do about it before you're actually injured.
So I have a question for you. At the beginning of your answer, you mentioned you noticed injuries, right? And that's kind of how the business got started. Were there a number or a handful of common injuries that you saw that you were looking to address?
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely some very common injuries. There's some debate, actually there's a lot of debate in the running world about different types of form, are you a forefoot striker, heel striker? Do you have like minimalist shoes or maximalist shoes? And a lot of people are focused down the chain, like at the shoes, especially the shoe companies. They obviously want to sell shoes, so they want to say that the problem is with the foot or at the shoe. We tend to follow a model. I mean, not always, everybody's individual, but we've worked a lot with Chris Powers at USC, and a lot of the research that we've seen shows that many of the problems originate higher up the chain, so at the hips in particular. Okay. So hip mobility and hip stability are two of the main things. And so a lot of times you'll see things like if you have a weakness or an instability in the hip, the pelvis is going to drop with each step. So you land on, say, the right leg, and the left leg drops, or the left pelvis drops. Or sometimes it's like it's more of a lateral shift.
Right.
So we see that's very common. Another one that we see a lot is if you have tight hip flexors, then instead of getting the leg back from the hip joint itself, you're going to tilt the pelvis forward, so like anterior posterior pelvic tilt. So kind of arching the low back in order to get that leg back behind you, and then that can cause back pain. It might just be the muscles in the low back themselves getting overworked, but over time that can actually cause some nerve issues as the vertebrae are sort of crunching on the nerves at the low back. So those are some of the really common ones. We also see a lot of plantar fasciitis and
interesting.
Shin splints, or just anterior tibialis muscle can get inflamed. So there's definitely some common injuries that we see a lot.
Did you guys? So how long ago were you evaluating the data with the runners that were coming into the lab before you guys developed this product? What was that?
I mean, Sean's been doing this for decades.
Okay, so perfect answer then, because my follow-up question to that is, in my thinking is, you and I are talking via the internet right now, right? Mm-hmm. You're sitting, I'm sitting. We all know about the downside to sitting all day in an office. And I believe that became even more prevalent when the pandemic hit and we were all stuck inside. And so instead of getting on a plane and flying to a meeting where you're going to be walking around the airport and moving about it to a different city and going, and all of a sudden we're doing all of our meetings from a Zoom. And I'm wondering if you have seen even more, I don't want to say necessarily injury, but more opportunity for injury, because we're sitting even more so now than we were prior to 2020.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't seen
Okay.
a change, and I actually read a study not too long ago. They were more looking at footwear, and with all of this, there's so many new shoes, so much new technology, and they were looking at has that caused running injuries to decrease over time, and it hasn't. So even though we have all these fancy new shoes, people are still getting injured at the same rate. So um, no, I mean that makes sense, and maybe there's some correlation there, but I haven't really personally seen like a big uptick in injuries. Like people, they were getting injured 10 years ago, and they're still getting injured now.
So let's talk about the product. I know a couple of friends of Run Try Bike, Caitlin Carew and Taylor Sales, are using the product.
Yeah.
And from the things that they've posted, what I can see is that it is a device that essentially sits on the waistband of a runner's shorts. And it's measuring movement, like you mentioned earlier, whether it's lateral or I guess vertical would be the other way. And it provides via an app an image. And so I don't want to misspeak. So help me understand. It's a device that sits on the waistband, and I believe you also have a belt. Is that correct?
Yeah. So this is our little sensor here. So this is the Aletheia sensor.
Before you go on any further, because I know every runner who's watching this right now, their first question is, how much does it weigh?
Gosh, I don't know. Not very much. Not very much. That's a really good question, and I should know that. It's pretty lightweight.
Yeah, because every runner is like, well, if I got to add something else to my like, is that going to slow me down? And
maybe 2 ounces.
Perfect. Barely a deck of cards.
That's a great question, and I should definitely know the answer to that. But yeah, so it can clip onto your shorts here. It's got a little clip. We also provide a belt, and typically, especially when you're first starting out, I do recommend using the belt, just because we can't really guarantee what kind of waistband you have. And if you have sort of a lightweight waistband, the sensor might be kind of flopping around. With this belt, it is a little bit thick, but it's pretty comfortable, and it doesn't really add too much bulk. But it's nice and sturdy, so we kind of designed it to be nice and thick so that it will really hold the sensor securely. The sensor sits on the sacrum, so that's if you feel there's those 2 little bony bumps behind the pelvis, those are the PSIS, and the sensor will sit right in between those. And we chose the sacrum for a very intentional purpose. So the sacrum is often called the hub of the body's internal connective tissue structure. So if you think of like a wheel and you have all the spokes coming out, the sacrum is built like that. And so there's all these ligaments that tie in. And so as you run, you have like opposite arm, opposite leg, and that creates, it's like a stretching of a rubber band. They call it the myofascial sling that creates sort of this X type of pattern down your back. And that goes right through the sacrum. And so everything from your arm swing to your legs, like how hard you're hitting the ground, all those forces are transmitted through the sacrum. The sacrum is also, it's basically, it's very close to the body's center of mass. And so I know I don't want to get too technical in here, and I've got a physics degree, so, but basically we're measuring acceleration, and force equals mass times acceleration. So we put this accelerometer at your center of mass. So we like to think of it in terms of force. And force is what causes all motion. So I think a lot of times people are looking at the effect of force instead of looking at the force itself. So for instance, if you had a soccer ball and you run along and you kick the soccer ball, you're applying a force to the ball. And what you see though is the ball moving. And so you might be able to measure like how far did the ball travel, but that's the result of the applied force. So what we're trying to do is kind of get under the hood and see what is actually happening that causes your motion. And so obviously running is a motion. And so in that gait cycle, there's this repetitive cycle of forces that you're experiencing. So Yeah, what we do is we're measuring those forces, and really it's three-dimensional. So there's a forward, backward, a side to side, and up and down, and it's actually a fully three-dimensional kind of pattern. And what we do is we take a view from the rear, a view from the top, and a view from the side, and we call those force portraits. So it's sort of a picture of the forces that you're experiencing.
So some of the pictures I've seen, I mean, again, it looks like a beautiful piece of art. There's waves on the image, and they're all over the place. Is the goal, as you use the product, to get that image to be more of a tighter circle then?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So like if you had a wheel instead of legs and you were traveling along at a constant velocity, then your force portrait would just be a point. So there's no extra up and down, there's no forward, backward, there's no side to side. You're just traveling along. So like if you're on a bike, especially if you're just coasting. And so the idea to run efficiently is to use the minimum amount of force to drive yourself forward. And of course, we do have legs, we don't have wheels. So we're not perfectly efficient. There is going to be some vertical oscillation up and down. As you hit the ground, there's a backwards force braking, and that's unavoidable. We can try to minimize that, but I'm sure people have heard about overstriding or having a slow cadence and things like that. What that really actually means is that there's a backwards force that's being applied to you. So if you land out in front of your center, you land out in front of yourself, that's slowing you down. And so with the force portrait, we can actually see a picture of that. We can see how much you're slowing down. And I like to think of it like with the braking, it's like putting on the brakes on your car. That doesn't mean you're going backwards, but right. There's a backwards force that you're applying. And so that means you're decelerating, you're slowing yourself down. And so in running, every time you land, you slow yourself down a little bit, and then you've got to expend extra energy to speed back up again. So there's sort of this constant slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. It happens very quickly. But this way we can see that. And we can see like the left and right, like the vertical forces. So like maybe you're hitting the ground harder on one side versus the other. And same with like the lateral, the side to side motion. And that especially will come into play if you have any instability or weakness in your hips, that as you land, you might be shifting side to side, or that pelvis might be dropping to one side or the other. So the force portrait is a visual of all of that, everything that's taking place as you run. So
does the user have to be an expert in physics to use the app? Based on all of the conversation we're having, right? I could see, the audience at home being like, how would I know how to make an adjustment?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what we've tried to do is digest all of this information as best as we can. And we present it in a way that's very intuitive and visually appealing, visually easy to understand. So what we did is we take these force portraits and yeah, like over time you'll start to understand it, but since nobody's ever seen this before, you're not going to understand immediately exactly what you're looking at. And right. So what we've done is we have a 3D motion capture system here in the clinic, and so we have a bunch of cameras, high speed. We put the little markers. You've probably seen that for like in biomechanics studies, or like with CGI and
video game creation.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing that they use for that, right? So it's super fun. And what we did is we synced our sensor. So we've got our sensor, and we synchronized that with this 3D motion capture. And with the 3D, we can see these movement dysfunctions, or it doesn't have to be a dysfunction. We just see how you're moving, right? And we know from research and from science certain patterns that might lead to injury, or certain patterns that might be indicators of like good performance, like efficient running. And what we try to do is we pull some metrics out of all this. So we have, ultimately it is this three-dimensional pattern of force that's, I don't know, I think it's fascinating, but I can see why some people might be a little intimidated by that. We try to break that all down and digest it. And then we have several metrics that we put on a scale of 0 is bad and 100 is good.
Okay.
And you've got like a 1-star down here, all the way up to 5 stars here, right? So you want to be in the 5-star category is the goal. So we try to make that very very intuitive and visual, and so it's on this dial that I think is hopefully pretty easy for people to understand. And we separated things into, we have our performance metrics, and that's about being a fast and efficient runner, so using that minimum amount of force to drive yourself forward. And then we also have what we call the diagnostic scores, and that's more about injury prevention. And there's definitely some overlap between the two, but we did sort of, there are some that are more related to just being fast, but maybe might put you more at risk of injury. And then some of the injury prevent, like maybe you're really fast, but you might get hurt. So we did try to kind of separate those things out a little bit.
I mean, this is fascinating. And so there are so many different wearables out there. As you're talking, one of the things you talked about was force. And the very first thing that popped into my head was power. And there are, power meters that are foot pods that are out there. Obviously, Garmin is going, and Aura are going to be measuring heart rate and HRV and all of these other things. Where does your product fit within an ecosystem like that?
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, our sensor sits at the sacrum, which is that central point of the body, that hub. And so we can see all the forces that are transmitting through that point, which you can't get that on your watch. So
right.
Garmin it's amazing what they can measure, and yeah, with the heart rate variability and even VO2 and stuff like that, it's astonishing. But you really can't get a very good measure of a person's running form. If you're looking at the arm swing and the foot pods. I think like Stride is cool. I think what they're doing is also really amazing. But that's seeing like at the extremities, that's seeing what's happening down at your feet. And like I was saying before, we think what's really important, it's all important, right? Like I don't want to diminish. There's certain things that can only happen at the foot, but the hip often controls where your foot is landing, right? So if you have an imbalance in the hips, or even in my own personal running, I had this persistent asymmetry that ended up being my arm swing. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And I was picking that up with the sensor. And it wasn't until I changed my arm swing that actually it made my forces more symmetrical and actually dropped my impact as well, which was...
Okay, hold on. So, because the way I've been thinking about your product this whole time is lower half, right? How do I adjust my hips to, how do I adjust maybe my footfall and my form and cadence? I'd not for 1 second think about upper body. So if you can help me understand and the audience understand what was in that reading in your force portrait, as you guys call it, that led you to think maybe I need to work on my arm swing. Were you already doing things for your lower half and nothing had changed, and you were like, well, maybe it's my upper half?
Yeah. So it's really funny because I was thinking the exact same thing, and I was like, it's got to be my legs. I'm hitting harder on one leg and softer on the other, and but actually. My little story with this, it was kind of a funny day. So my wife had bought me 3 different pairs of shoes, and I brought them in here to the lab. It was a slow day. I was the only person here. And like I said, I've got all this tech. I've got these sensors and cameras and everything. And so the first thing I was doing is I was just trying each shoe and trying to see which one was the best for me. And that's one of the things I think is really fun with the sensor, is that you can try, like, yeah, go ahead, like, try different shoes and you'll see it will change. There's going to be a lot bigger change between individuals or for other reasons, but the shoes will change your pattern. And so I was looking at that, and then I was trying a lot of the cues that I give to people, and trying a lot of different like glute activation exercises that are supposed to get your glutes to turn on, trying different, more forefoot, more heel, like increasing my cadence. I was trying all these different things like high heels or high knees, like all these different little drills and stuff like that. And each one does make a difference, and there are some changes. But just a couple days earlier, Sean had shown me, Mark Bell. He was a big big power lifter. He's like this giant dude. And in the last couple of years, he's realized that, it's not actually healthy to be like gigantic, and that he started getting into running to try to cut his weight down. And so he's like, he's world champion power lifter. And Sean's an elite level power lifter as well. So he loves Mark Bell, and Mark Bell had this guy David Weck. He's the guy who invented the Bosu ball. And he was doing this thing he calls the head over foot running. And so it's kind of like doing these little uppercuts with your arms. It's very fast and very subtle. But what it does is it kind of gets your shoulders involved. And this ties back to, there's an amazing researcher. His name is Serge Grokobetsky. And he was researching what's called the spinal engine. So you told me not to get too technical, but
Get technical.
So evolutionarily speaking, I think this is really fascinating. So evolutionarily speaking, fish swim sideways, or like they only bend sideways, right? Like dolphins and whales are going to go like this. Fish are like this, and so they're just undulating the spine. It's sort of this like wave type of pattern to swim. And from an evolutionary standpoint, as animals started to go onto land, in order to get over obstacles, you have to be able to like side bend. And so our spine is developed to not just move side to side, but also sideways, we have a rotation.
Right.
And there's this fascinating video. I wouldn't be able to find it. It's on YouTube, but there's this guy. And so it shows this video, and he's walking across the gym floor. And at first it's zoomed in on his upper body, and he's just walking along. And it zooms out, and he doesn't have any legs. And so he was born without legs. And on the bottom, there's the ischial tuberosity, is little bones on your butt. And he's just walking on his ischial tuberosity, basically by doing the spinal engine. And it's fascinating. They like drew on his spine with markers, and so you can see this sort of wave. It's sort of a wave, but there's a little twist in it too. So it's this sort of motion. And basically, Sean had shown me all this, and Sean, it was just before I met Sean. He had Serge come out. So yeah, Serge Grokobetsky, he's amazing, and he was out for like 3 weeks, and he had this invention called the spinoscope. I'm not going to get into too much about it. Really, really fascinating guy. Really, he's thinking very differently, I think. And so I think a lot of times people think that locomotion, whether that's walking or running or swimming, is just like the legs moving, and that your upper body is just like this solid core, and that it's just the legs, which honestly, I was kind of thinking that way, and that you should kind of brace the core and run very solidly. And so what Serge is saying, and then what David Weck has further developed, is a series of techniques. He's amazing. He has a lot of different inventions. I mean, he started off with the Bosu ball, but in particular, rope flow. So you guys can look that up. But the idea is just using a rope, and you kind of make these like figure 8 patterns, and you can kind of see that puts that spinal engine into me. And so you can kind of start with that and then put that into your running form. And basically, this is long-winded, but Sean had showed me this, and honestly, I thought it was a bunch of BS. I didn't. There's so many gimmicks in the running world, I feel like, and
yeah.
Or certain things, maybe it's not a gimmick, but maybe certain things work well for certain people. Like they need this, and maybe this is just what I needed. But I tried it, and like I said, I was wearing that sensor, or Aletheia sensor, and instantly, all of my forces became symmetrical, and then they dropped. I became, so we have all these, we call them the performance metrics, and every single one of my metrics improved. Everything got better. Like literally everything that we're measuring got better. And it felt easier. And, it wasn't like some 6-month training program where I've got to strengthen, and do this. It was pretty much instantaneous as soon as I sort of got that pattern. So that was really fascinating to me. And so, like, coming back to your question, I was also thinking it had to be my legs, and I was thinking about my legs,
Right.
and thinking about different foot strike patterns, or different, like, different cues, my cadence, or whatever. Um, and those definitely do play a role, but it was getting my arm swing figured out, and getting that spinal engine, that sort of undulation down the spine, that for me cleaned up everything. So that was really fascinating for me.
It's really interesting because I just paced a friend of mine, Allison Miller, at the Vermont 100, and it's the end. I paced her from miles 70 to 90, so she's been out there for 20 plus hours by the time I get to her, and we're doing plenty of walking, hiking, and not as much running at that point. And I told her, I'm like, when we're hiking, swing your arms, like get the momentum by using your arms. And that'll help us get up these hills a little bit faster,
Yeah.
and ease a little bit more efficiently than dragging dead weight, for lack of a better term, at that point, if they're sitting behind you. I just didn't realize that what you're measuring would also indicate that you could, using your arms in your measurements would help a runner, which leads me to my next question, which you may have already answered, which is like, why should I care about any of these things? Why should I, as the everyday athlete who is going to, some of our audience might be, I want to run this one marathon, check it off the list, and move on to doing something else. Like, why should I care about all this measurement in addition to, like we mentioned earlier, Stride and Garmin or Apple Watch? Why do I have to care about Aletheia Run's measurements and what they're showing me?
Yeah. I mean, I think the most important thing that we're trying to do is prevent injuries. And if you want to be a healthy person, even if you just want to walk later on in life, you need to have some level of health. And I think it's really interesting what you're talking about with the arm swing, because in walking, and both walking and running, you're a lot of the energy that you use as you're walking or running comes from this sort of stretch and release of the fascia. And so with that arm swing, you're putting your fascia on stretch. So it's like this rubber band that comes down your back, and then you're releasing it. And you're getting that energy back. It's like, or if you had a bouncy ball, like it compresses and it you get the energy back. So if you're not doing that, then you have to use your muscle energy. And I can't remember the exact, the exact amount of energy that gets stored and released, but I think it's something like 80%. So it's like, it's about being efficient in your whole life, really. And I think running is maybe a part of that. And if you do have a goal, like running a marathon, you do need to have some level of efficiency, or you're just not going to be able to do it. But yeah, I would say the number one thing is preventing injury, because if you're trying, especially to run for health, and you end up getting injured, then you're going the wrong way.
And we want to make sure people are not getting injured. So when people are making decisions about, products and gear, it feels like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like your product is something that should be one of the very first things that new runners look to get, because if you can avoid injury right out of the gate, then the idea of running a marathon or a half marathon might actually get to 2 or 3 or 4 and longer in longevity in the sports, because you're reducing that injury right out of the gate.
Right.
Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, as best as we can, we can tell you if there's certain things that you need to work on. If we're picking up certain patterns that might increase your risk of injury, and I always have to be a little bit careful. I can't guarantee that you're not going to get injured, or I can't guarantee that you will.
Right.
But there are certain patterns that it's like, if you keep doing this, there's a higher risk, I guess. Yeah.
Customer support. I know you said that the layman can look at the images and make adjustments and look at that. Does Aletheia offer customer support where if a user decides that they're using the product and they've gone through 2, 3, 4 different changes to improve their imagery, but it's not getting better? Is the app designed to help the athlete with that? Is there somebody at Aletheia that helps with that?
Yeah. So we have what we call the Pocket Coach Tips, and
Okay.
so we have a bunch of little videos, little exercise videos. At the end of your run, we have the option. You can put we call it the pain survey, and it's optional. You don't have to do it, but this was designed by Sean. And the idea, so there's qualitative descriptors of the pain, and those are intended to signal whether it's like joint pain or muscle pain or nerve pain, and then a little slider, so in intensity, so from 0 to 10, where 1 is maybe just a little bit of an ache, and all the way up to 10 is like excruciating. And there's a little diagram of a body, so you can choose where on the body you're feeling that pain.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gives us some information about what type of pain that is, and how bad it is. And then we have a little exercise, little videos that it will give you. And if you don't fill out that part, we basically just go off of what we can measure based on your pattern. And so we still give some recommendations if we see anything like maybe we see some instability with the hip, and we might give a hip strengthening exercise. So there's that's built in, and then for every one of those metrics, both the diagnostics and the performance scores, if you click on those, then it says, what is it, why does it matter, and what can I do about it? So we break that down. We try to give you as much information as possible. And at this time, since we're a very small, very new company, if you just email us, you're going to talk to me or maybe Armando, and when we're happy to get on a Zoom and talk about it with people. So we do that a lot. As we grow bigger, if we that might become a little bit more challenging. But as of today, yeah, just send us an email and I'll talk to you.
So one of the things you mentioned there, and I was going to ask this question anyway, but I think it was a great segue, is yes, you guys are a relatively new company, but from an experience standpoint, you guys have decades of experience in this field. And I want to stress that because there are a lot of snake oil salesmen in the world. There are a lot of snake oil salesmen in the endurance sports space that we see on a regular basis. But you guys as a whole have decades of experience when it comes to being able to identify scenarios in which a runner specifically is having issues and what could lead to injury based on the studies that you guys have done previous to launching this business, right?
Yeah. So we've been working on this for a long time, and Sean especially. I mean, he's going to be 60 next week. He's a phenomenal. He's on a whole other level. Like, he should have some other category beyond physical therapist. I mean, he's phenomenal. And we've been working on this for a very long time, for at least it was pre-COVID when we really got started. And it's just that now it's at a point where I can hand it over to somebody who doesn't know anything. They can turn it on, they can press record, they can get results that you can see. In the earlier days, it would be like I would just get the raw data and I'd have to put it on my laptop and run it through, and it would take a couple minutes, and then I only could look at it and tell you something. So it's just now that it's at a point where we can give it to the general population.
And when we were in the green room, you mentioned that this is predominantly for what you call distance runners, but basically you said somebody who's running for more than 30 seconds, up to a minute.
30 seconds, yeah. Honestly, we are working with some sprinters too, but it's a different. It's not that like we can measure sprinting, we can measure that. We can measure actually just anything really, but it's more the analysis of what does that mean, and your goal in a sprint is very different than the goal in an endurance running, right? Like you're trying to blast out everything you've got in 10 seconds. So you're not necessarily trying to be ultra efficient and reserve your energy and things like that. So that's a longer term goal, is more sprint analysis. But yeah, it's really designed more for I say distance, but I use it in the clinic all the time with like less, like 1 minute of data is fine, but more at that sort of more of like a distance pace, I guess, rather than a full-on sprint. Yeah.
Great description of it, a distance pace. That's a great description of it. Have you, with the clientele that you guys have, do you know where the majority of the athletes that are using the product lie? Are they half marathoners to marathoners? Are they ultra runners? Are they multi-day athletes?
We have a pretty good mix. We had a lot of interest from the ultra running community early on, but that's sort of, it's like, you've got sprinting on this end and ultra runners on this end, and especially at that time, we've improved some things since we kind of had a little flurry of interest, and we didn't have much of a walking analysis at that point, and so a lot of times ultra runners are doing this. They're right on that border, right between running and walking, and
We like to call it hiking, Cooper.
Yeah, it's tricky. Well, it's a funny thing. I mean, it's like, I think most people, it's either you're running or you're walking, and it's like, it's a binary, like one or the other. Yep. But there is this funny boundary area that to me is honestly really fascinating, but it's hard for us from an analysis point of view. And we've actually improved that a lot. So we can identify if you're running or walking, and what we ended up having to do is put everything on the same scale, because that was sort of the trick. Like, say your efficiency score, do we want to have that just like, is there a walking efficiency and a running efficiency, that they're two different things? And we decided, no, let's put it all on the same scale. But what that does mean is that for walking, like, it's just way less force, like way less force in walking. So most of your scores look much better for walking. And I think that that's valid, because you are at a lower risk of injury, and you are more efficient. You're using less energy. So we've actually improved that quite a lot. But I would say that more from like, even, it doesn't even have to be a 5K, like, but I might say like 5K to marathon is pretty good range. But even like a mile is fine, especially for ordinary people. I mean, if you're some of those guys, if you're like sub 4 minute mile, that's to me a sprint. so that you could do it. But yeah, it's more for sort of I guess maybe a middle to long distance.
I'm going to put words in Cooper's mouth just so you.
Yeah, I better be careful, huh?
Just so you ultra runners know, we are the more efficient athletes. We have our efficiency score is going to be better because we walk far more often than a marathoner would.
No, I think that's true, though. Honestly, I mean, I think you are going to be more. You have to be more efficient. If you burn up in 10 seconds, then you're not going to finish your 100-mile race.
The 100-mile race is going to take forever. You're going to miss cutoffs if you're burning out after 10 seconds for sure. Right. So where can people find the product so they can take a look at it and order it?
Yeah, so Aletheia.run. So it's, I don't know if that's backwards in your view, but it's just Aletheia.run is our website, and you can order it. And we offer a 30-day free trial, so you can try it out for 30 days. And if it's not for you, no big deal. Send it back. That's fine. But we hope you like it.
And I'm sure I'll get this question. If you are a triathlete, it's not going to be useful for you in the water or on the bike, but it will be useful for you on the run. Is that correct, Cooper?
Yeah. It is for running. I hope one day, if we can get some more traction with this, especially swimming, I think would be really interesting.
It would be interesting.
I think biking, probably we'll never do biking just because you're sitting on the seat, so you don't really have a lot of motion. You're kind of locked into. But I think swimming would be really, really interesting.
Yeah, because with swimming, you're rotating. Yeah. Right. Similar to what we were talking about with your arm swing. And I think it would be fascinating, because one of the things, so with swimming, we have goggles that can measure our speed as we're going and give us an idea of how fast we're moving. And but for the vast majority of swimming, it's intuition. Where am I putting my hand in the water? How am I pulling it back? sighting. And so if we have a device like Aletheia Swim, I just coined it, Sean, I'll take the royalties as you go along, so that we can improve in those areas because we have data points that show us where we are improving. I think that would be phenomenal for triathletes.
Yeah, I would love to do that. In general, any sort of repetitive motion like that, so swimming counts, walking, running, even we've talked about, and I should be a little careful here because this doesn't do anything like this, but we talked about like baseball pitching. So if you have a really type of motion, anything like that would be really fascinating, I think, to look at. But I think swimming would be would be a great one for sure.
As a huge baseball fan, I could absolutely see a scenario in which why the device that you guys have developed would be useful with zero doubt, because it is a repetitive motion for a pitcher to throw that way. And I mean, I don't know if you're a baseball fan or not, but there's so many injuries to starting pitchers these days with elbows and Tommy John surgery and shoulder issues. And I'm sure it all starts, at some point and works its way around the body. And if you're able to measure that, there's an opportunity. If you guys don't mind, I'm a Mets fan. Call the Mets, see if there's something that you can do to help those guys out.
No, honestly, I think we could. I mean, it would obviously take a little development, but like I said, we've got to start somewhere. So we're starting with running.
It's a fascinating device, and the way you're able to measure all of the way the body moves at the sacrum and how we're all tied. Because again, it doesn't matter if you're 5'2" or 6'2". It doesn't matter from a weight perspective. Like, our bodies are all the same in that scenario in which where you guys are measuring, it's going to give me an individualized image that I know I can work on at that point.
Right.
So I find what you guys are doing super fascinating. And I think it plays into the idea of the everyday athlete, because one of my things is I want to do this for the rest of my life. Right. And I think a lot of people who get into our sports would also want to do this for the rest of their lives. And one way to do that is to avoid injury. So you avoid the frustration of not being able to do the thing that you love. And I think your device that would help a lot of people get either back into the sport because they get, their health improves, or stay in the sport longer because their health never really deteriorates, shall we say.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Sean, Cooper, I appreciate your time. We always wrap up our fireside chat with some rapid fire food questions. I don't know why after all these years we call them rapid fire food questions, because you can take your time to think about them. You don't have to rip off answers. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right, here we go. You've already got pineapple on pizza wrong. Let's see if we can improve from here. Oreos. Are you a fan of the old school Oreo, the double stuffed Oreo, the new thins, or the new Cakesters?
Honestly, I don't eat Oreos very often, but I do like the stuffing, so I think I'd go with the double stuff.
Excellent answer. Licorice, red or black?
Black.
Really? You're an anise fan, the Sambuca flavor.
Yeah, I like the real licorice too, not the Twizzlers. Yeah, I like licorice.
What are your thoughts on Peeps? Are Peeps a real candy, or should they just be left on the side of the road?
I'd leave them on the side of the road.
I've been told more than once, and I've actually had somebody ship them to me, that if you allow Peeps to get stale, they actually taste better. And so my first reaction was, so let me get this straight. You want me to take something that's terrible, make it worse, and somehow it's going to be better? Well, I did taste it. I did try it, and it did not get better. It was better off as a doorstop, not as a candy. Candy corn. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax covered in sugar?
As an adult, I think it's earwax covered in sugar. I used to like candy corn when I was a kid, though, so I don't know. Maybe it's got something.
Just about every grandparent's house, or maybe an aunt. Also has a bowl of candy, and usually has three things in there. Usually has a peppermint. It usually has a strawberry hard candy with a soft strawberry center, or a butterscotch. Which candy are you taking out of the bowl?
I'd probably go with the mint. I actually like mint.
So do I. I'm a big fan of the mint, but I can be convinced to take the butterscotch one.
I'd go with a butterscotch too. Yeah.
Yeah, that strawberry thing.
No.
Leave
no.
it by.
I agree.
Is a hot dog a sandwich or a taco?
It's a sandwich. It's not crunchy.
Oh, so you're a fan of hard, crunchy taco shells versus soft taco shells?
Yeah, I don't think it's just a burrito. I mean, if it's not crunchy, then it's a burrito.
You've just opened a whole new can of worms. I love it. First of all, I don't like hard, crunchy shells, but I also don't like wheat or flour taco shells. Like, it has to be a corn tortilla shell, but it's got to be soft.
Okay.
But I get a little bit hypocritical because I also do put the corn tortilla in the pan to toast it a little bit so it gets slightly crunchy,
A little bit of a
but
crunch.
not full on like old El Paso crunchy that's just going to crumble everywhere.
It's all delicious in my book, really. But
What's the go-to taco in? What's going inside your go-to taco?
I mean, go-to, it's going to be ground beef, some of the taco flavor in there. That's just had that the other day. I do like more of the fajita style though, but that's more work.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen as often in my household.
Try to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah,
I eat a vegetarian vegan diet, so
Okay.
Beyond Meat makes like a chimichurri steak.
Uh-huh.
So chimichurri steak, some cilantro, some chopped onions, and then a little additional chimichurri sauce, and I'm golden. I don't need much more than that.
You're making me hungry.
Yeah. I just drooled a little bit myself.
That's good.
Is red velvet cake a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom?
It's just chocolate cake.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Like, you go to the grocery store and they're charging you $12.99 for a red velvet cake and the $4.99
on chocolate cake.
Like, what are you kidding me? Fueled by lupus, stale peeps is a thumbs up, candy corn is wax, and a California taco. I like the answers. Thanks for participating. Okay. Favorite flavor of ice cream is?
Ooh, I like a lot of flavors of ice cream.
You're in Oregon, so yeah. Tillamook, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's a lot. That's a hard one. I'm gonna say rainbow sherbet. It's kind of my old school favorite, but I like ice cream.
Same. I love ice cream.
I can't actually even think of a flavor that I don't like. So
I love it. I love it. Favorite flavor of candy bar?
Candy bar. Oh, I'm going to say Three Musketeers. That was I don't eat candy bars a lot, but back in the my high school days when I had this job where it was like, what is it, like a quarter? You could go into the little food. You get a little like Dixie cup, and we get Mountain Dew with one of those little mini Three Musketeers bars, and that was our little snack that we'd get. So
I like it.
I have a soft spot for those.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Three Musketeers too. It's a super simple candy bar. It is not like a lot of added anything to it. Pumpkin spice or apple cider? I know it still feels like summer, but the pumpkin spice stuff is already hitting the shelves. So
yeah, I'm not a big fan of pumpkin spice, so I'm going to go with apple cider.
My guy, you could be a repeat guest for that answer.
Just real apple cider is good.
So good.
Cinnamon, maybe some cloves or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, we lived in Seattle for a year, and we went out to some apple farms, and I bought like a dozen apple cider donuts, and they probably lasted all of about like 35 minutes. They were so good.
Yeah.
Are you a Pop-Tart fan?
No.
Nope. All right, we'll skip that question. Chocolate chip cookie or oatmeal raisin cookie?
Chocolate chip.
Okay. Maybe you'll get this last one right. I hate for you to start off with the wrong answer and end with the wrong answer.
No pressure though, right?
No pressure. Okay, a tray of brownies just came out. It's been sitting on the counter long enough for you to cut into it and enjoy the brownie. Are you going to the corner? Are you taking an edge piece? Or are you going into the middle?
Oh, you know, hmm,
We ask the hard questions around here.
that is a hard one. That's a hard one. Like imagining where do I cut it? I'd probably go with an edge piece. You get a little bit of the corner and a little bit of the middle, a little both.
Yes, you get a little bit of that ooey gooey while you're able to actually hold it at the same time. Are you a person who puts ice cream on? You're an ice cream fan, so you obviously must put ice cream on top of your brownies. Is there a particular flavor that you're going with?
I would if I had it. My mom always used to joke when I was a kid, I liked the ice cream even more than the cake. So I would. I suppose if it was a brownie, I'd probably just go with something simple like vanilla, just like in chocolate and vanilla. That would be good. Yeah.
We're getting some answers on Instagram. Badwater06 is a chocolate mint ice cream fan. I second that very much so. I'm a big fan of that. And the answer to the brownie question is it depends on whether I'm dunking it into my coffee, which is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. Although I think I'd still go with the edge. You get a little bit of both.
You still hold it.
Yeah.
Still hold it. Fueled by Lupus is out on Pop-Tarts. They love the corner edge of the brownie, and they believe that everything is good with coffee. And I second that as well.
Sure.
And mango ice cream or mango sherbet, I'm guessing at that point.
Yeah, I don't know if sherbet would go good with coffee, but it's a little fruity.
If I don't win a Pulitzer for these questions, I don't know who will. Cooper, thank you so much. For those of you who are joining us, Aletheia Run, ALETHEIA.run is where you can get is where you can get more information on this device that will help you improve your running while also helping you reduce your risk for injury. Cooper, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
For those of you who have stuck around for this hour, thank you so much. Time is the greatest gift that we can give to anybody, and you've given me the gift of your time. So thank you very much. Make sure you check out our other shows on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. And also, we have just released and announced the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse, which is a private community for you, the everyday athlete, to come hang out with other everyday athletes. We have a whole host of benefits. Go to runtrymag.com, go over to shop. The drop down will bring you to the Everyday Athlete Clubhouse. It is super affordable, and the benefits will far outweigh the cost within the first day, because I'll be sending you a welcome box with a lot of goodies in it. And by the way, you don't need podiums. You just need good vibes, sweat, and some snacks. I'll see you next week on a Fireside Chat. Thanks for joining me.